Hey, Amy, we made you a host and we muted everyone else, so.
And we're recording.
And no one is talking right now.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay. First of all, let's do a quick roll call. Ideally, when we're talking, because we've got so many people, chat is kind of the best thing to use because we've got upwards of about 60 participants. So please just use the chat. Give me your name and the district or the ESU that you are with, and we'll just capture that. Also note that this particular webinar is also being recorded, so it is available on the website afterwards. So if you have folks that aren't able to attend. And probably the last reminder I want is this is your meeting. So this meeting is for the districts. So if there's something you don't know, if there's a question you have, good chance somebody else has that same question. So please don't hesitate to ask. So I'm going to go through a set of information and then we'll kind of open it up and see what questions we have. And I do have a few things just to point out. So first of all, hopefully everybody can see my agenda if you're dialed in to the webinar that way. We do have approximately 65 districts who are set up and are publishing their data right now. So that's a really, really good start. So far, at this point, we don't have really any overall kind of outstanding issues. Most of the questions that have come into the help desk and whatnot, we've been able to answer. Or we're waiting on a vendor to get back to us to fix something. So I would say overall things are continuing to go well. On the agenda, which is found on the advisor website, which I'll point that out to you again. That's right here as well. That has you, there's the help desk tickets, there's their JITBIT help desk tickets. So anything advisor-wise, we ask you to send to that help desk. Use that help desk link and or use this help desk email. Okay. Just to remind districts what our goals are, since I do have so many online compared to the first time, is anybody who was in an EAP district last year, EAP2 district last year, we'd like to see you up and publishing your data, and I'm going to change that, by the end of this month. So by October 31st. Okay. I think we're going to come pretty close to making that. We've got quite a few people online and people are continuing to get online. I have several work days next week where we'll get more people online, and then a whole nother set of work days in November. Okay. We also, and then we'd like to have all districts publishing by December 1st. That way we are able to just reach out and figure out who's unable to publish or who we need to maybe provide some additional support to. So again, if you're not publishing by December 1st, expect to see some emails or some phone calls from folks. Ideally, we want to have 2 or more Ed5 work days. So right now, this is the first round. We're doing the fall work days, which is really kind of getting people set up. Those of you who come to some of the November work days will probably focus more on looking at errors and data. And then we'll have another round sometime in the spring, probably anywhere between February and April. So we haven't started planning that yet. We'll probably plan that in the December timeframe. So look forward to that. When we get to those work days in the spring, we'll probably focus again on making sure your data looks accurate. And then we'll start looking into the dashboard. So remember, that dashboard is that additional product, that free product that you can get on and look at. Teachers have access to it. There's a lot of good information out there, and there's some good videos out there that I'll point you to when we kind of go over the website here in just a second. So we'll focus on that in the springtime. Really, the goal there is just to make sure that people who you want to be connected are able to get connected. And then we'll continue to work with your ESUs, the PDOs, and other people to start doing some training with districts on how you can best use that for your district. So I don't think that we'll be at a place where your whole district or your teachers will be looking at the dashboard by the end of next year, but that's something that we'll want teachers and stuff to start doing probably as we walk into 18-19. So it'll be a process, but we'll get there. And then kind of the goal all throughout the year as we get on there is to look at your data. Just like you have an NSSRS validation website, you have that advisor validation website. And we'll take a peek at that again today since we've got a large group on. It looks and feels very similar to NSSRS. We've pretty much, for lack of a better word, we have copied and pasted the reports that are on NSSRS and put them on the advisor validation with a few tweaks and other things. Something to note, though, as you're looking at advisor validation right now, is that you will not see a lot of those staff reports that you're used to seeing in NSSRS. Those will remain in NSSRS for a little while longer, because if you remember, we're still using and will continue to use the old method, or the current method, I guess it's not old, the current method of collecting the staff, your certificated staff data. That will not change. All right, so we've done a roll call. Thanks for those of you who have popped in. I'm going to talk about that website again. Okay, here it is. This is the advisor website. Okay, lots of information out here. Right at the home page leads you to where you can get help. The calendar has the list of our work days along with any of the meetings that are available. If you were to click on today's meeting, that would also provide you the dial-in information. On all future meetings, they're about once a month. They're about the third week of the month, but that give or take a little bit. A couple are not. And then they're at 10 a.m. Okay? So here's where you can see, and you don't have to go to a workday at your ESU. If there's a surrounding ESU close to you and that date and time works better, you can go to that workday. Okay, I'm getting some feedback and I don't know where it's coming. Okay, there we go. Okay. So November 13th. I can check. Yes. Okay, so Melissa can I add a workday November 13th in North Platte at ESU 16? Let me double check the calendar. But I think that is a doable date. So Melissa, just send me an email so that I double check that. That would be great. Okay, so again, here's your calendar. Here's your work days. So take a look at that. Information's there. Again, you don't have to go to the ones that are at your ESU. If you're willing to travel for a couple hours and there's one that is surrounding one, that's great. I know that Infinite Campus is having some separate work days for those folks. Majority of our districts are on Power School, so I'm not going to lie, a lot of these work days are Power School centered right now. However, I've had work days with Go EduStar folks and whatnot, and by the time we get into this fall, spring, anybody is welcome, because a lot of it's going to be just looking at your data and helping you troubleshoot that. So we won't be, hopefully, as into the student information systems as we are right now during this setup process. All right, so those are your dates. Other things, meetings tab. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but on the meetings tab, here's where our agenda is for today. Here's where I will post the meetings, and a YouTube video will also get posted of the meeting so that you've got that to listen to as well. A couple things. If you're curious, what is this advisor thing? Yeah, people have been talking about it for years. If you want a list of some of the benefits, there are some listed here. If you've got some people that still aren't ready to buy off on this, this isn't going away. So this might be some fuel for you in that conversation. This Getting Started tab. here's where some of those videos are about that dashboard. Again, we're not ready to dive into the dashboard just yet, but in the spring, we are going to start looking at that a little bit more closely, and we'll probably at least ask for a handful of folks from East District to get into their dashboard and start looking at their data to see, you know, are things coming over correctly? Can we use it? There's some different settings that you can set up, etc. So there's some good videos here. This advisor videos here. I'm working on getting a couple other videos put out here. So come back to this site where it says getting started. And there's also a demo site. So if you want to just see what it looks like, see what students look like, you can log in as a teacher and you can log in as an administrator. And there's some login instructions on how to do that right here. Okay, I'm going to take you to one more tab. I'm going to take you to two more tabs. Here's some of the instruction tabs. Okay, so if Infinite Campus puts something out, we do our best to put that here as well. PowerSchool puts out some information, we try to put that out. Or if we have something that NDE that's specific to NDE in that vendor, here's where we'll put that information. Unfortunately, it doesn't always sort within kind of the date order, so just kind of, you know, be mindful of what you're looking at here. If you find something that looks outdated, by all means, let me know. For example, I know I need to re-update this. This is the current set of instructions on how to get onto the PowerSchool, and I think I've got a new document, so I'll need to update that. All right, and last but not least, if districts would just kindly take the time, there is this progress sheet. That saves me time from emailing my VST members who are part of the virtual support team who are at each issue and telling me to give them a status on where you're at. Okay, so this is just a spreadsheet. If you scroll down to the bottom of this main screen, you should be able to click right here to open that spreadsheet. If not, oh, I've got a link at the top. Click here to edit this sheet. So everybody should have access to this sheet. Ideally, what I really need people to fill out is, don't worry about the blue. Don't even worry about the yellow, because we've got a lot of that filled out for you. But the green and I think the orange is what I've asked districts to focus on. And give me a second here so I can scroll left and right. I'm just going to open up the worksheet. Okay. There we go. All right, so green. I need to know, have you established that connection yet? Okay. And then, are you publishing data? And you know if you're publishing data because if you go to that new advisor website, the new advisor validation, you will see data in your reports. I didn't ask if your data was right. I didn't ask if all your data was publishing. I just asked, are you publishing data? Okay, so at least we know something's getting sent up. If all of it's not getting sent up and things of that issue, then we'll get that figured out. So get in there, fill that out. And then in the springtime, we'll probably look at this kind of reviewing of the data in and stuff like that. So you've started to review it. We'll have some checks and balances for you. So that's something we'll talk about shortly. And then just kind of a Q&A data validation. So those are things we'll check off. So I appreciate, I see some people getting in here. So I'm going to kind of just close off. But if you can get that updated, that would be great. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me get back to my agenda because I know I've got a couple questions that have come up. JITBIT tickets, I kind of covered that at the beginning. Again, here's the JITBIT email. It's advisorhelp@nebraskacloud.org. So again, keep that specific to advisor. We are still using the regular NSSRS for the NSSRS help desk. Right now, things are going to be separate, and then as we merge into next year, you'll have one help desk where everything will go. So just be patient as we figure that out. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I do want to Max to give us just a quick update where vendors are, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of just open it up. I've got some questions that are coming in, and we'll try to get those answered, etc.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, yeah, a couple of vendor updates. Starting with GoEduStar, we've gotten, I think possibly all the GoEduStar districts have gotten their keys now. I'm not exactly sure.
And I think we have a good like 10 or so that are publishing. I think almost all of them are publishing or pretty close.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize how little of a interface there was there. Basically, it's GoEduStar's hope to set it up where you just put in your key and then it just starts loading data nightly. There may be a problem. You know, it's very hard to tell what data has gone up and if you're getting any errors. So sometime in the near future, I was thinking of trying to get a meeting together with EduStar districts so we can come up with some ideas of a feature or two they might like to see, and so we could take that to the vendor. So I haven't kicked that off yet. I will look at that soon. I'll probably involve ESU1 and then also include all the couple of other districts that are using EduStar. So yeah, I'll send an email about that in the next couple of weeks to a month, I'd say. Because yeah, I've seen several cases where people get to the validation site and see less data than they expected. So we don't really have a way of telling what's going on. Yes, Sycamore. After they got certified and built the EdFi interface for us, they decided to withdraw from doing EdFi and basically withdraw from the state for public districts. I've heard it may be related to their work with EdFi in other states. So I'm not exactly sure what went on, but basically for the couple of districts that had Sycamore, you know, we are trying to make plans, get them onto a different vendor for next year. So yeah, kind of a bad situation. We're aware of, yeah, for example, Bedford's situation. And NDE will try to help with that. So we'll be following up, and we've been talking to your ESUs. We'll be following up with those districts. I think it was just 5 districts that had Sycamore.
Yes, 5 districts.
So yeah, to answer Cindy there, yeah, we would hope to get you, I mean, at worst case, you get a new SIS set up for this summer. Ideally, we can get this going, get started as soon as possible with switching Sycamore districts over. But like I said, it'll be a challenge, and we'll do what we can to help any of those districts in that situation. JNC is actually not fully certified yet.
Oh, sorry.
We've had multiple meetings. We're like 90% of the way there. We've been finding some issues and fixing a few things. So we are going through that. And I think, you know, we've got the next meeting probably will be scheduled within a week. So yeah, EduPoint's certified in publishing. Infinite Campus, we've been working through a few issues with McCook as the first district to get on. I'm not exactly sure what the update is there. Although I saw Michelle on. If she wants to give us an update, go ahead. And Sims is getting online now. Anna is working on that at ESU3.
Hi, this is Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get unmuted. So where we're at, we just had one last little issue to clean up, and that should be released this week. And so then we will do that final testing. So we are very, very close to having everything done that we need to have done.
And then you'll be working with the districts to
Yep, absolutely.
to schedule a time to get them online.
Absolutely, yes. Yep, we'll be contacting each of our districts and providing them with the specific steps they need to take in the SIS in order to get their 17-18 data going up.
All right. Yep. So moving along there. SRS is planning on coming online in November. We don't have an exact date yet, but they're very close. They're working out some issues, adding some new features at the end. And so we'll let you know more about that in the future. If ESUCC doesn't send something out, well, we could talk about it at the next district meeting, for example. And
So-
PowerSchool.
I'm gonna just ask about SRS. So when you say, so is that as in like it should be released to all the districts and they'll be able to start publishing their SPED data via SRS in that kind of November, December kind of time frame? Is that where we're at, or will they still just be at a testing phase? Okay.
I think the plan was to get it on production.
Okay.
And then we go, each district requests to get on, and we do a little setup for them.
Okay.
Scott's online. If Scott, if you had anything to say about that. Maybe not.
Okay.
All right. Backing up, question about JMC. My confidence level is pretty good. JMC, at least the person I talked to there, seems to indicate they are interested in increasing their presence in Nebraska. So they've been working hard to get the EdFi process set up, and they are also working a lot with Wisconsin, who's another lead EdFi state.
So they do work with some other EdFi states as well.
Yeah, primarily us in Wisconsin.
Okay.
They're based out of Minnesota. So yeah, I mean, I think the outlook is good for JMC. PowerSchool. And Amy, if you could fill in some details, that would.
I was just saying, no, PowerSchool, for the most part, we're going strong. We've got a couple of just kind of flaky things that are kind of happening that I believe we'll see a new release come out Friday, October 27th. There's some issues where you're kind of getting an error or dependency. When you go to look at the student or even the staff member for that matter, it looks as if you get green checks marks, so it looks like it's publishing, but then come to find out that really that information really never made it to the ODS or the state database. So they're looking into what's causing that issue and seeing how they can fix that. And then there was just a couple almost just updates or kind of like nice to haves that we asked them to add to, and off the top of my head I don't even remember what they were. So they continue to kind of just make some little improvements, but for the most part people are being fairly successful. I will tell you, this is really the first year that we're starting to look at attendance data. So I don't anticipate that to go like swimmingly, just going to be honest. So I've already gotten some phone calls because as of yesterday would be the first time that you could begin to post that type of data. So I get that things might not look correct and whatnot. We might start seeing some dependencies. So we'll just kind of work through those as we can. And I'm sure that's something in the next few weeks we'll start taking a look at. So I myself haven't even had a chance to look with some of the districts that I work directly with. I haven't had a chance to look at their attendance data and see how things are looking. But a couple of you have reached out and said, hey, this doesn't look right, or I'm getting lots of errors. And just like, I guess with anything, and I think this goes through all of the student information systems, think of your student information system, whatever kind of error tool they've given you or process they've given you, that's like your validation, or that's like your verification, not your verification. That is like your batch.
The data manager
Yeah,
site.
your data manager site. That's like your batch manager site. So there's going to be times when you're going to get errors. But guess what? the right data still makes it into the database. And so you might just have to live with those errors. So if you've done NSSRS long enough, you realize that sometimes you get an error, but then lo and behold, you really didn't want that record to go through anyway because it wasn't formatted correctly or whatnot. So keep that in mind as we continue to move forward. Okay, are you talking about the Power School release? Usually they do something the last Friday of the month, which is October 27th. So I am personally, that's just, they keep saying the next release, and so that's an assumption on my part because that seems to be their what they do is usually it's the end of the month, the last Friday of the month.
And yeah, we would expect, if you have pre-K students that require attendance, or actually all your pre-K students, we expect you to put them in your SIS.
Yes.
And yeah, the ones that require attendance, you will need to report that through.
But even your home-based ones are going to require something because you're requiring a SPED. If you're home-based, you're either SPED or you're an early childhood home base. So even though you don't require attendance, you would still need to be in your student information system. Okay. And if anybody's getting stuck with that unique student that you're like, well, we tried to put them in, but this doesn't work. Those are the things that you got to reach out and tell us about. Okay, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing about halfway there. Okay. Looks like we got, this is just like, okay, yes. I understand. Yeah, I know you're not Power School. Got it. Yeah, so you're moving in the right direction, Becky. So that's just a good reminder. Again, the goal, if you will, or the data quality or what we expect you to submit to the state has not changed. It's just the method from which you are doing it. But 99% of your kids should already be in your student information system and should be syncing, you're exporting and then uploading. So if you're doing a lot of manual creation, then this is where you need to start formatting and setting up your SIS so that it's working correctly. Good question. I have no idea, Mark. That's the stuff that we'll start putting stuff out there and we'll just have to kind of look at it. I would think that with, their FTE. Well, but see, you need to be careful about giving them a lower FTE because a home-based kiddo, if that's the only service they receive, that's their program, their FTE should be 100%. Right, but if they're going, for example, if they go to, like, they're an early childhood kiddo and they go to another private preschool, so they're in preschool, that's their program, like a non-public, you got it, then you would adjust their FTE. So, okay, good. We're all on the same page. Mark, if that is a special needs student who is simply receiving those services at home, we do not require attendance. Does that answer your question?
Amy, it's Mark. Not really. I mean, some of them are home-based. Some of them are 3 to 5 range that come in for speech twice a week and those types of things. So those are the pieces that we have there. Okay. I mean, I think it's a great big thing that you're trying to address too with externals. Even goes so far as our seniors, get out 4 days early.
Yep. Are you Power School? Are you Power School?
We're Sims.
Your Sims. Okay. Yeah, I know Anna has put in some tickets asking kind of some different questions. I don't know if she's online today. A lot of times it's about using different tracks for those students, but depending on the student information, your system that you're using depends on what your options are in that regards.
Yep. Well, and then even looking at the different preschools, in
Yeah.
the 3 to 5 range, we have 3 different calendars
Yep.
for those kids, and that creates a little problem in trying to do attendance or reporting.
And those are the things we're just going to have to figure out as we're going along. And hopefully we do. Okay, so Angela, let's see. Can you show me? Yes, I will take people to the validation screen, so just hang on. I'm just kind of... Okay, so I'm going to back up here. What do we do for the SPED students that continue at an alternate site instead of graduating for attendance? You keep them enrolled as if they're sitting in a desk at your school. So that I will tell you right now, that is something that every fall we have just even NSS or S-wise, you get that error that says, hey, this kid was enrolled last year, but I don't have a record for him now this year. And I would say half of those errors have to do with seniors that are either coming back because they're receiving some type of alternate, service or continuing to receive services to their 21, or they're seniors that you forgot to graduate for one reason or another. They took an extra couple weeks. They graduated over the summer because they didn't get a class completed, whatever. When you are rolling over your year-end information, you're going to have to pay closer attention to that and make sure that kids get rolled over appropriately. If they're continuing and moving on, then they need to make sure that they get moved to the school that they would continue and move on with. As opposed to, a lot of times seniors become, in a student information system, they often become inactive. And every student information system does a little bit different, but they become inactive, and then you have to go back. You can go back and reactivate them. It's not hard, but it does take a little bit of time. So those are some things to think about. So SPED students that continue at an alternate site, they stay enrolled at the district that they would be at, or the school that they would be at, as if they weren't at this alternate site. Is there documentation on an advisor regarding how to submit dual enrollments and their summary attendance? So tell me about what do you mean, Angela, by a dual enrollment? Dual enrollments. Well, overall, student enrolled at 2 high schools at the same term. Okay. Are you managing that now with NSSRS? You just split up their FTE, correct? Okay. To be honest, right now, I don't want you to do anything different than how you would normally do it. And then in theory, I don't think we should run into an issue. As long as you're within your school, your district, you should be fine. But let's just keep an eye on that. That is a good question. I forget we have a few, I forgot about that. Okay. Ed, I'm moving on to your question. What do you do with students who are an alternative school like Boys Town? Okay. Same thing, it depends. Boys Town's a little complicated because Boys Town also offers Boys Town is also considered a non-public district. So if you need to figure out what status they're in at Boys Town, probably 85% of the students that are there or that are going to a public district have been required by the state or some type of probation type of thing to attend there. But generally speaking, you are still their district of residence. And so in that case, they're considered a contract provider, okay, and they are not a public district. So again, you would report them as if they're sitting at a desk in your school. And you would have to work closely with Boys Town to get things like their classes and their grades and what their attendance looks like. Yeah. I agree with you, Becky. That whole interdistrict transfer error is annoying. And there's a couple other enrollment errors that I'm hoping with advisor actually go away. So let's make sure maybe our next meeting, which will be kind of that third week in November, we'll have a better chance to look at what those kiddos look like on the validation website, which we'll get to here in just a second. At the public school and then at the program like Heartland for ours, we make them look like they're building in the district. We can continue this. We can do this. Our reporting school attendance will work, but period attendance will be a mess. Okay. Max, when we're looking at attendance, are you going by day, or are you going by period? And how are you defining a period?
Our attendance calculations for like attendance rates would be based off of daily attendance. Since you can submit partial days to daily attendance. Everything works there. The period attendance is purely optional. It's something that teachers can see in the dashboard. So like in the case of Sims there, you could, yes, that is the only reason to submit period attendance now. It's a change, I think, from what we said originally, but.
Yes, we have changed the way that we want
you
to
see it on the
calculate
dashboard.
attendance. So yeah, go ahead, Max, sorry. I didn't mean to step on you.
So yeah, you can see it on the dashboard. It may be used in the early warning system as well. But we're hoping to calculate the accountability attendance data based off of daily attendance. So in the case of, someone who is at a public school and a program, skip the period attendance for the program, that's fine, or, you're free to do what you like with the period attendance.
Right, so the other thing that we're running into is the way that we thought we were going to do attendance, we changed our mind. So this is the first time we're doing it kind of this new way. It's, in my opinion, we simplified it quite a bit, so I'm very hopeful. And again, when it comes to your ADA, ADM, we're looking kind of at overall daily attendance, and then the period attendance has to do more with some features that are in the dashboard.
Yeah, and so now we no longer, before when we were trying to use period attendance, we were saying that everyone has to have a homeroom. You can forget about that now. So that, I think, was the problem before.
Okay, it doesn't look like I've got anybody else typing, so we'll end ADM with the FTE portion. Oh, Angela, go ahead. Or Max, you know the answer to that?
I have no reason to think we would change that, although I don't know what that is. Jill would know, but.
Oh, right. So if you have a kid who's 75% ADM, but you said that they're there all day, I think we somehow, for lack of a better word, prorate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no reason to think we would change that.
Okay. You guys have got some great questions. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on because a couple people have asked, where is this validation website? Okay, so this validation, if you log into the portal, if you're a portal user, you log in, and here's where your NSSRS validation site is. Whoops, I didn't mean to click on that. Let's go back. Okay, and here's where your advisor validation website is. Okay, we went ahead, and if you had access to NSSRS validations, generally speaking, we had some queries that we ran. If you had access to NSSRS validation, about 90% of you, we automatically gave access to advisor validation. So if you still don't have advisor validation, by all means, open up one of those JIPIT tickets, and one of us will work with you to make sure that that's what you need access to. So it says advisor validation.
Sorry, you can get the code, your portal code, just like any other portal app.
So you can also get that from your superintendent, or like your district admin or your superintendent as well. But 90% of you should probably already have this if you have the NSSRS validation. So advisor validation, I'm just going to give a quick tour. I'm not going to go in and look at any kind of student information here. Look and feels a little bit different. When we get to the home, eventually you'll have kind of a similar screen to what you see in the old one, where it'll kind of tell you how many things have been uploaded and whatnot. Errors, we're working on errors, but at this time we don't have any, correct?
No, I haven't turned them on.
Okay.
We actually have some of the code for the errors in the system. If you go to screens ready that will let you see your errors. So,
Okay. And will
we're
they
working
have
on
to
that.
reprocess errors like we've done in the past? Yes?
Yes, although we'll
Okay.
give you a few more options about how to reprocess.
Okay. Your verification reports. Again, the advisor validation is primarily has to do with the student stuff. So when it comes to, for example, your personnel report, your certificated staff report, I can't think of the name of it, that's still going to be on the NSSRS validation website. Anything that's staff here is probably going to either have to do with student grades or staff and what access they have to the dashboard. We're trying to kind of create some reports so you can see, we can troubleshoot if, for example, a staff member is unable to get to the dashboard, et cetera. So look for some of that. This looks and feels, again, if you're used to getting in the validation, NSS, this looks and feels quite a bit the same. Here's your membership by grade, race, and gender. And a lot of what you're going to have to do is if you've got to, we'll try to put together some worksheets that maybe say, here's some things you need to start comparing. But again, if you look at this looks and feels quite a bit. We have an as of today or the last Friday in September. So here's your reporting windows. You can look at district. You can look at your school level. I won't be able to bring up a report. The report will look and feel the same. Anytime you see a hand, if your report is hovering over a hand, that means you can drill in and see a list of students who that affects. So again, that's your verification reports, and I would just start comparing them because for the most part, what we have done is we've just done a copy and paste. So your membership report and attendance should look quite a bit the same. Reasons it might not look the same. You manually uploaded changes via the NSSRS site. You didn't have time to re-enroll that senior that you forgot to give a 210 to. So you left PowerSchool alone, but you created an Excel file and uploaded it. You've got an error within your student information system. Something's missing. It can't pull all the information for that student. We've miscoded something. That happens. So if things are not looking right and you're having a hard time figuring that out, first of all, I invite you to try to go to some of those work days. We can also maybe set up some webinars where we walk through those together. So I think we've got a couple different options on how to do that. So eventually you'll be able to see your special education. So again, all these reports, the people I'm talking to right now, these should be very familiar to you. So it's a lot of, if you've got two screens, putting one report on one screen and the other report on the other screen and doing some comparing and contrasting. You know, if one screen says you have 10 first graders and the other screen says you have 11, all right, you can drill down and you can figure out where your discrepancy is and we'll go from there. This will eventually go away, but this is kind of your load metric. So this just helps us identify if your data is loading. And then your lookup by IDs, same things are there. Eventually you have your student lookup by ID, you have your enrollment lookup by ID, and then you have the student lookup by demographics. Max, what's your timeline on getting the cohort lookup on here?
That I am not sure about.
Okay. I've used that a lot this week, so I don't know how often other people use it, but that would be something if we could get up at least definitely by next fall for sure. But yeah, sooner than later would be nice. Manage reports, you don't see that. I'm special. If you have access to more than one district, and some of you do out there, you know, here's where you would choose that. And then here's where you would change your school year. And the big thing here is you just need to make sure you click the select button. Okay. So what I would invite you to do is I would invite you to go out here and just start looking. If you're publishing your data, you know, then you should start to see data out here. Okay. If you're not seeing data, then, you know, work with your student information system, open up a ticket with us, and we'll see what we can do.
If you are trying to get yourself into the dashboard just to check it out, I should point out that we do have one staff report on here, which will show you before you try to log into the dashboard and get errors. This will go ahead and tell you who has access to your dashboard.
Right. Is it there now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So this tells you who has access. Okay. Angela, I agree. No, right now there is not a way that you will be uploading Excel or CSV or PDFs. Can we have an option? Yes, you
So
do
to
have
download it,
to
though,
download it. Yes, you do. I'm sorry. Just like you did on your validation website. When you're on, it'll look very much the same. You'll see your little disk option here to do PDF and all that stuff. So I don't know if I can
and
get
like
one.
the lookup, like the lookup by demographics, that one just has a.
Yep. See, there you
It's
go.
not a report. It has a button that will export it to Excel.
So you're right. And hey, if anybody starts comparing their data and they've come up with a way that works, that they just think is like the bee's knees, tell me, because we're trying to put some stuff together, but every district is different. Angela makes a good point. We got some larger districts at that. That's pretty overwhelming for them. I mean, if you've got like 200 or 500 kids, it's pretty easy to kind of just start looking at some numbers and figure out what's off. But anything upwards of like more than 500 to thousands, and that gets challenging. So if you've come up with an idea of how you're looking at your data or being able to compare and contrast, you could put things in multiple worksheets. If you're a pretty savvy Excel person, there's probably some ways to use like VLOOKUP and things of that nature so that you might be able to kind of put your comparisons and columns next to each other. So if anybody has any kind of cool ways, I'm a pretty Excel savvy person, so I'd be more than willing to kind of put something like that together for districts. Just takes some time. Okay, so you use
I
Access.
expect we'll make use of the demographics, lookup by demographics a lot. You can basically use that to just get a list of all of your students as well as certain a good number of fields about the students.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with Max.
And you can export that whole thing to Excel.
Yep. And then once you have it to Excel, obviously there's things you can do such as filter, sort, etc. Good question. For now, publishing? Right. Well, I guess, Jean, probably the one thing you just need to keep in mind is just because you're getting errors within your student information system doesn't mean that your data is not publishing. I honestly go back and forth, and it'll be interesting to see what I decide to do. A lot of what the work days we've been doing now have been really about getting people connected, and then we focus on those errors. But I'm going to be starting doing work days in November where I'm going out to districts who have already been connected. And our plan there is actually not to open up their student information system, but rather to come here first and start looking at the data and see how things look. And then from there, go back to the student information system and see what's happening. And keep in mind, some of the errors that you're getting in the student information system, there are certain things that are required for the state database or the state accountability mark. And then there's requirements, for example, for the dashboard. A perfect example is in PowerSchool, and I'm sure this happens in other student information systems. Phone number is not required for the accountability mark. We don't want your phone number. However, the dashboard would like your phone number because there's a nice little demographic screen for your teachers. So we're getting an error on phone number because people have either put multiple phone numbers into a field or they've typed the word work and then the phone number, and it only will take numbers and dashes. But there's a perfect example of your data. That student looks perfectly fine on my advisor validation site, but I might have issues with that student on the dashboard. So some of the errors that you're looking with, we have to kind of separate a little bit because they may be dashboard specific versus accountability marked or state database specific.
There definitely are cases though where if in your SIS someone's throwing an error under advisor, that's definitely a good person to look at to see if they're showing up in your NSSRS data, but they're missing in your advisor data.
Exactly. So I guess to answer your question is I don't know the best method. And I think it's just going to vary from district to district. I think you just have to figure out what is the best way for you to look at your data. We can certainly give you some ideas on how to go about doing that, but everybody organizes, their calendar and their desk and whatnot differently, and everybody runs their district differently and manages their data differently. So that's not going to change. Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left. Other questions, concerns that we have not talked about here? You guys, I appreciate you, one, attending, taking your time, and you guys have asked some awesome questions. And so I appreciate your input on that. Okay, you are all free to go. Myself and the other folks at NDE will stay online. So if there are some people who just didn't feel like they wanted to ask a question, you can certainly pipe up. We'll probably stay online for the next 5 minutes so that we can capture some of the stuff from the meeting, and we'll put the meeting minutes out there.
Amy,
Yeah,
this is Twyla Vogel from Crawford Schools. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you, Amy. Amy, I found that my information is uploading,
Okay.
but
What's your student
one-
information
one-
system?
I'm GoEduStar,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
But one of my big errors, because I've been doing my comparison, is I have 27 SPED students and only 8 are coming over to validation. And my question is, how do I find out in my student system what's blocking it from being uploaded?
I think
Where
at
do
this
I go?
point, go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is a way necessarily right now. I think we're going to have to ask for at least some basic features from EduStar about like
I mean,
seeing a log of what data was sent and what data threw an error and what the error is. I don't know how complicated it needs to be. Doesn't necessarily need to be as complex as like Power School, for example. But yeah, that's why I was saying I think we'll want to get a EduStar district meeting together at some point.
so at this
I'll
point,
make
I
sure.
would probably just call EduStar, the person that and if they can seem, at least the one workday I was at and they called, they were able to see kind of what was going on. So obviously they have a way, I think, of looking at that. I could be wrong, but that was kind of,
I think so.
yeah.
They should.
Okay, so at this point, we're not that concerned with it. We're just kind of looking and
You got
seeing
it.
that I don't have to absolutely match.
No,
Okay.
no. Hopefully, then when we come to like the June timeframe, that's when things are going to look a lot better. My guess is things are going to look a little messy right now, but that gives us time to kind of fix what's going on if there's any errors. And like you said, work with GoEduStar to maybe get some reports or some ways to look at what's publishing versus what's not.
Okay, well then I'm going to quit. I've been comparing and trying to figure more of it out. I'm going to quit spending time
And they're
on
all
that then.
active students, right? They're all like
Yeah.
active SPED students. They're all verified. They're in their student, right? They're in your student membership.
Right.
They're everywhere else.
Mhm.
They just don't make it into SPED, huh? Yep.
Yeah, some reason. And I kind of, like I said, I spent some time
What's their,
comparing and
are the
seeing.
8 that are in there, are they new students? Are they like students who just became SPED kids?
No,
No?
I think
Okay.
most of them have been in for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just it. I just
Okay.
haven't found anything that identifies them.
Okay. No,
So-
but then, yeah, I think you're asking the right questions. Yeah, because I know some student information systems rely on the calendar a little bit. So that was the only thought I had, was if they were newer, then maybe it wasn't looking back. But their record is still in there. So, nope. Yep. That's all I got.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's all right.
sometimes it's just like one field that is blank on those students. You have to
Yep.
fill in something. You never, it's hard to tell, I guess, without
Right.
getting any feedback from the software. But
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I had talked to you, Max, about it, and you said to listen into this webinar, and you might be identifying a way to, go further, but I'll keep
Yeah,
coming
if
in
you
on
want
these
to,
meetings.
get the process started early by talking to EduStar, though, that wouldn't hurt.
Okay. All righty, that sounds good.
I would encourage all the EduStar districts to do that.
Okay, all righty. Thanks so much.
All right, any other questions, folks? I think we still have some folks online. Well, Jeannie, you can probably stop recording now if you haven't done so already.